And sheepishly we go, Daryl, get a decent connection. Hey, this is Daryl as a service for regarding 365. This is Office 365 Message Center the week that was. Yep. Dan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
It's been like a couple of weeks like this where we've been sweating, and it's been a struggle to, like, everything's good, and then when you go to sync up the streams and you go to, start
push the
things
button.
off,
Yeah.
push the button and away it goes. It's like, nah, I don't want to give you enough bandwidth. So it's
That's all
rushing
right.
around the house. Is everyone off the internet? Yes, they are. Well, then it's
I
got to
like
be.
that. I like that. That whole it brings its nostalgia, where you go back to the everybody, turn off the dial up. I need to make a phone call.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
It was actually only recently we used to go into a dairy, which you guys would call a drugstore or a corner store, and we've had FPOS for many years, but some of these dairies or drugstores will go on the cheap, and they'll use the same phone line for their FPOS line. So the same line that they're trying to do business on is being used by their family out the back, because often their homes are attached to it as well. So get off the phone. I need to make a sale for a 50-cent piece of chewing gum.
Right. Nice.
So this is
hilarious.
this is us. We're all class here regarding 365. But what I must say, Dan, is you've got a classy new desk there. You're actually standing around. You're a bit kind of free.
I am.
Come on, dance
free.
with me. Dance with me. Thank you. I'm going to turn that into a GIF because you got me last week. You got me.
That's not. Yes, I am on my new desk. I absolutely love my new desk. Being able to sit and stand, and I've got my center. I sent out a tweet earlier this weekend or late last week about how I got it set up. So yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Nice. Very cool. Well, let's get on with it. We do have a few things to cover. I'll literally say a few, but they have been important. And what we have noticed lately is that the community observes, we talk about it, and then the following week it's in the message center. So we do see a pattern like that this week.
Are you trying to imply that we have some sort of impact on what's going on in the message center, Daryl?
No, of course not. No, they've got these things queued up weeks in advance. They've got production schedules. They say, we're going to release this. No, we're going to put it off for a week. And then when they do, and it might come out at the end of the week, it's then that they have all their blog posts queued up, and the blog post has to be...
we're just jumping the gun a little bit.
Yeah, it is. But let me just explain that a bit for some viewers who might come across this video or viewing us live. We'll check in with our live people later. I've still got to drop in the right URL for that. Cool.
I'm totally...
So what happens when we have software and things from different product groups in Microsoft, and it must be a massive task to orchestrate all that and bring it all together. They have development schedules, they've got things that they want to release at certain times, but to communicate, this is really the key thing that we've seen them struggle with early on with Office 365, is the timeliness of communication and support articles. So when they're releasing new features, sometimes what was happening was there's something there, but then there's nothing there to tell us, how do we use this thing? And then there's a blog post that has to be queued up, and sometimes the feature would have to be released in pieces 2 or 3 days beforehand. Let's turn this piece on and that piece on. Right, now the last piece, and really release the blog post. So the community, good old community, would observe things. They'd go, ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's that? And people would start talking about it before Microsoft was ready. And that's what we still do. The community has eagle eyes.
That's right.
Yeah, so... That's been the case. Anyway, I have 4 thingos in my message center. Yes, that is an official technical term called thingo. And our thingos, we still have a general availability or a major update, which... actually, that's a different one this week.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that one's actually kind of a big deal, I think. The OneDrive Hovercard. This brings the experience of understanding what's going on with your files kind of to a new level. And I think this is huge. It was demoed at Ignite. It was talked about. It's been talked about for a while about how we can. I post a file and I share it with you, Daryl. How do I know you've seen it? And how do I know if I posted it to you with a link that's open to the whole organization, then how do I know who it's been shared, that link's been shared with, and who's looking at it? Is there any value to having that file shared out, right? And this Hovercard is going to give us that. It gives us how many times our document has been viewed, who's viewed it, and then who modified it. And I think, and it's interesting, the first post I saw about this on Twitter was not, hey, this is awesome, this is going to be fantastic. It was, this is how you turn this off if you want it to be turned off.
Yeah, nice.
So, just the same thing where if you flip on some nice search or something and people start searching, they're like, wait a minute, I can see all these documents that I have access to. It's not that it's the search is broken. It's just that you didn't secure your documents correctly, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same way here. Is that or similar, I guess I should say, that people are like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with everybody seeing who's looked at the file. So, but I look on the other side. It's my file. I'm sharing it. So, where's the problem here? If you don't want me knowing you've seen the file, don't look at the file.
Yeah. Maybe people are looking for those read receipt settings you can turn off in Outlook. I want to read it, but I don't want to let them know that I've read it, because then they'll think that I have to do something about it. Right.
And I don't think people should turn it off. I really don't. This is one of those. There are times when there's functionality that I'm like, maybe you should turn that off. I don't think this is one. I think you should leave this on. It'll get you more engagement, people sharing more when they see, I can tell who's looking and what value my contribution brings. So I think this will drive engagement. So don't turn it off. That's my suggestion. Others will, I'm sure, have a different opinion, but that's my suggestion.
Yep. Yeah, no, I do like, we see more and more stuff arriving with hovercards. They're really convenient. We've got used to that gesture of hovering over certain things, even on Windows, and getting more information. So that's what it's all about, is things at a glance. How is this going to give me more information about a file, a person, how to communicate with them, when to book time, all that sort of stuff. So
and one thing about this I want to say is this rollout is going to be rapid. Not rapid, but I think a month is pretty quick. Their targeted release in the coming weeks, and then anticipated completion to standard release late February. So, if we said coming weeks, give it 2, then 2 weeks later, they're going to turn it on for everybody. So I think it's a quick thing that I think people need to get a handle on now. And again, I don't think you should turn it off. I think it's more about educating your users and just getting that, however you educate your users. If you have an intranet with news, maybe this is one thing that you highlight, maybe put a video out there, or maybe you have a lunch and learn every month or something, even if it's just an email, but, communicate to users, hey, this is one of those bigger things. I agree with it being in a major update card. This is one of those bigger things, but again, I think it's a good thing and it'll drive adoption.
Yeah. I think that there's a difference between when a feature like this is released, and sometimes there's other things which seem more interrupting and intrusive. This is purely informational. I'm giving you information. You'll be able to use that information. There are some features that are released which people can interact with, like attaching a external storage service to a Microsoft team. And that sort of thing requires a bit more notice and a bit more guidance. So this is just one where it's a big deal, but it's also not something that is going to require a lot. In fact, we do draw your attention again to the good piece of the message that says, what do I need to do? Nothing. And that's often the case. But we are seeing more messages now where it does tell you need to do this by this time.
Yeah, that saying you don't need to do anything, obviously that is from a Microsoft's perspective, and I think they're saying those things for an enablement. Like, what do I need to do to enable this?
Yeah.
In this case, again, I don't think you should turn this off. But for other things that you may not be able to, you don't have to do anything to enable, but you might want to do something to disable it. So what do you need to do to prepare for this change? I just gave you some options. Obviously, there's others, but you just need to communicate. It's not a huge change, but it's a big enough change that I think it's a good change to get people more engagement. When I saw this initially months ago, I was like, yes, this is what we need. We need insight into what's going on with the documents we share. So,
yeah, I mean, maybe we'll eventually see. Well, we've got something that says, what do we need to do to prepare? We might have a section there about what to communicate. And what some of the community have been asking about too is, can we have perhaps some messaging templates that we could use for this specific announcement? It would be really good to see that for at least the general the major updates. Yeah,
and I agree with that. It would be nice, honestly, if we could get some, like, a go ahead from Microsoft that how can we use posts that they post about this? That when we click on the additional information, is it okay if we just totally rip that off and not rip it off, but how can we, link to, how can we highlight that information in our own environment? Yeah. Can we use like a community side, or can we use whatever? I don't know. And maybe it's the community figures that out. Maybe we just start, you guys listening to us ramble on about this, maybe you can come up with a solution that would be best. How do we highlight these items for organizations? And maybe we can get some people in the chat. How do you communicate with your employees, with your users, these items that are coming out that may be big, may be small, but you think will impact your environment? So I'd love to see some communication, some in the chat or on Twitter. It would be great if using that hashtag RE365, give us some feedback. I'd like to hear how you do it.
Looks like Phil's, he uses Yammer internally. So that's one way, certainly, to get the word out if everyone's in there and reading it, and certainly discussing it across the organisation. He's also suggesting potentially using Flow. We'll check back in and see what Sarah, Sandy, Matthew, and others.
Sarah, I think, would have something. I'm going to pick on her, but I think our chat room's pretty good about coming up with this stuff. I think that'd be good. That's true. So anyway,
all right. So next, all right, scroll it on up. This one, I'm actually puzzled about this one. This one is more about the outlook for your mobile, and particularly for Android. Now, I've seen, and we'll see this when we look down there at the additional links, that things are changing about how Outlook app is working on mobile and how it's presented. It looks like this particular update is bringing Android up to what we can see on our iPhones. The description's a bit sort of like this, but basically it's the left-hand menu that now presents us with the unified view. You can see your separate accounts if you've got multiple accounts, and as you go into that, you can see the breakdown of at the top, pinned folders like groups and important ones like inbox and sent, and then below that you start to see your subfolders, and there's apparently the front and center that search is supposed to give you more information from much like a card perspective that we've just been talking about. But the changes that I'm seeing, apparently that Android have caught up with, I'm not seeing everything that's mentioned in the blog post. So if we just have a quick look at that, let me shift our faces across. Yay. Blow that up a little.
Whoa!
I know. Yeah. How was that ride for you, mate? Was it a bit
bumpy,
good. Bit scary?
fine.
Yeah,
I'm not.
careful now.
I'm
There's
not
some
scared.
turbulence. Have a look at some of these screenshots and blow that up a
I like
little
these
bit more.
screenshots.
Yeah, so that is kind of what I see. Yeah, definitely. This sort of first panel there that allows you to switch between your accounts. You see that on iOS?
So yes.
Okay. And this groups menu, so that's surfacing now the groups for Outlook within Outlook. There was talk about trying to move more of this functionality into Outlook so you don't have a separate groups app.
Right. Yeah, it's always bugged me. Why in the world do we have a separate? Yes, we want this. I want parity with the mobile app of Outlook and desktop. Now, obviously, there's going to be some differences because it's mobile, but I think those qualities should be there no matter if you're on the desktop or mobile. So groups is another one. Email signatures. Oh my gosh, that's another that I would love to be changed. Anyway, I think this is great. I actually enjoy this, and props to the people, the creators of the content, because I really like the images and the comparisons of this is what it looks like before and after for Android, for iOS. So I'm props. I like it.
Yeah, it's rather than just a block of text. As an admin or as someone who needs to communicate change, like Sarah and others on the show, on the chat room, you've armed us with pictures and information that we can take, copy, and rebadge and basically say, here's what to expect, people. This is what's coming, and come along to one of our drop-in clinics or come see me and we'll help you out. So that's Outlook for OS. Now there was something further down here around conversations. So I think this is also arriving to Android too, the way that it's concatenating, I don't know if it's the right word, but just condensing the first part of that message, and then you got to click to see more, and the way that it manages threads. Yeah, so there's the difference between writing a short message or long form, so you can expand that box and do that. But more and more, like, we're just using email just as chat, so that's kind of effectively
right. I'm not sure how well I'm going to adopt that. I mean, I think I will. It's just that whole changing, like you said, email to chat. We've started getting that with app mentions and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of examples of how that's happening. But I've noticed that in iOS and in the app, it's you can be careful because it looks like you're just send them a message, which you might think is an IM, right? Yeah. But it's an actual email. I don't know. There's differences between those two that we can talk about later, but but it's interesting.
Yeah. This is the piece that is missing at the moment. So this whole blog post is not being released at the moment. I don't see this kind of search experience or the simplified bar there. So it's all about trying to bring search front and center. Anyway, we better move this along too, because we do have we are checking in with Paul Keitzes, because I met with him earlier this week. What have we got here? We've looked at the enhanced folders. We've looked at the Hovercard. We've checking in with the file move. So we don't have to talk too much about this, but this is that example of us talking about something that the community has observed and we've seen, and now we've got the message in the message center. So it's good that it's there. It's good that we have the blog post as well, but this really needed to be out before we started seeing those changes. Fair comment, I guess. But still big news, still good, being able to move those files around. It
is, and it should be out. It's targeted release now. I think there's a fine line, you mentioned it, between the idea of, we've complained about this before, having announcements that don't have the additional information. So they have to have that all queued up before they release I know it's a fine line. So while you're complaining, Daryl, I won't complain.
Yeah, and the other thing too that we have to look closely at is that sometimes this message is they're repeated because they come out
Sure.
and then they say, right, well, we're addressing another audience, the general
Sure.
audience. And lastly, we have SharePoint Online Admin Center's new experience, and we had to
Yeah.
sign up for a beta to see that to begin with. Now, do you want to share your screen, Dan? Let's see if we can get this to work.
Sure. And for those that speak regular English, that's beta. Is what he's
Beta?
saying. Yeah, beta. It's a beta release.
That's BATA, isn't it? Beta.
No, no, that's incorrect there. So here we have the SharePoint Admin Center. This is the one that you've known and grown to love. If you had signed up for the beta or when you get the new Admin Center, there's a link up here at the top right.
Mm-hmm.
I've just preloaded it to save time, and then we're able to get a new experience for managing. Now, you won't see everything in here that you've been seeing in the Admin Center, and they're going to run side by side for at least a while because of that. They're catching up. This is an MVP, so they're just getting it out, getting the functionality out that they want to right now. The site management is where you're going to see a lot of the improvement to be able to navigate, pick on, all sites, the least active sites, et cetera, to really, I like this to be able to engage with my sites. But what you'll see is the template that they're using. This is really important to be able to filter by the template, saying I want to see different types of sites, whether it's a team site, the classic experience, or communication site, publishing site. So being able to really filter down and see those sites is, I think, very important. See if they're being used, when they were created, etc. Go ahead.
Do you see any groups or sites that are attached to Office 365 groups like Teams or Yammer or Outlook?
Yeah, this is where you're going to do that. Now, I don't know. So
that actually raises my point.
Group owners right there.
Group owners, is that your clue, is it?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I can't remember. It was demonstrated how to do that. Yeah. And I can't remember. I don't know if it was Dan Holm that did that. I can't remember, but it was demonstrated on how to do that. And maybe that's a follow-up. I'll do a follow-up video on that. How's that?
That sounds good. We can break out and do that sort of stuff because that's what we do. But yeah, that's good to see. Maybe we need a filter in there that actually shows us, that sort of content. That is the last message, and we just want to check in now with Paul Keitzers. Now he had a really interesting story around Office 365 usage on ships, and that really takes some mobility to another scale, doesn't it? It's not just about cruising around with a phone or a laptop, but you're cruising on a freaking big ship. So let me just get that queued up, and we'll see what Paul has to say. So, Paul Keitzers, good to see you again. Hey, we met at Microsoft Ignite for the first time late last year, and it was good to have a chat with you then. But we've been in communicado on and off along Twitter for quite some time.
For sure, yeah. I think it's gone already like 1-2 years back for the Twitter. We start following each other, and I mentioned you in your articles regarding 365. Yeah, and I really like the Message Center shows every week. It's really cool.
Cool. Yeah. Well, Paul, tell us a bit about what you do for Wartel.
Yeah. Well, as you told already, I'm working for Wartel, a Microsoft company as well. We do a lot of Office 365 projects. I myself do a lot of developing and programming or consulting and webinars like you do, but then only in Dutch. So every month we have a webinar with the Office 365 updates of this month, and then we go back and look what's in the Message Center like you do. So yeah, that's what I do mostly. And I also have a podcast, but it's also in Dutch. and
Yeah.
it's mainly for people who are looking for new information about Office 365.
Great, yeah, and it's good that people like yourself put a lot of effort into sharing that news and that information in the different languages as well, because it can't always all be in English, can it?
Well, you see, most things that are around are in English, and I think English is very good, but we still have a lot of people who are not that good in English. So with the Dutch explanation, it makes it easier for them.
Of course. Hey, we were talking about a couple of things that you've been working on at Wartel, and I don't need to talk anything about specific customer names, but you had a really interesting story about using Office 365, but really in a very different mobile kind of way, and it had something to do with shipping. So, yeah, expand a bit on that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I was talking to you about the dredging company, and they have like office around the world, and the biggest issue they have is like on a ship, how do they get Office 365? Well, at the ship they use a satellite connection, but they also are in some countries where there is a poor internet connection. And in the poor internet connection, they also need to have the documents available and the most recent documents. So we looked into that, and replication was not possible, or it was very expensive. And they didn't want to have their own satellite connection because they were on land, and satellite's quite expensive. So we were thinking about something else. We did try to look at SharePoint on-premise and a connection to 365, so they could always go to the documents, but it's quite hard to keep it in sync when your internet connection is gone. So what we eventually the customer said, we want to go for a OneDrive solution, which is not our preferred solution, but for the time being, it's okay. So what they do, they sync their documents, and when it's ready, they will put the documents to Office 365. So they are still a bit of in sync, but of course, as you may know, OneDrive is personally content, and SharePoint is for the whole company. So that's not the best solution.
Yeah, but I understand that their choice to use the OneDrive sync client gives them a lot of control over bandwidth peaks for when it's synchronizing, that you can limit it when you need to. And now they've done so much work in fixing the dependability of that sync that it is a good fallback. Tell me, do they so they synchronize their personal OneDrives and collaborate from documents in those drives? Do they also synchronize the document libraries from their team sites?
No. What they maybe I have to explain a bit more, because they are only syncing one OneDrive and its personal client, and then they are making file shares to the OneDrive. So it works, but it's really a bit crappy to be honest.
I see.
So I would prefer that we take a look at the solution once more, and as they only get the documents that are ready and not crucial, it goes, but it's not the best.
Yeah, I found this story quite interesting because when we think about mobility, we often think of just the end user taking their devices places, but we don't think of a whole office location moving to different locations, such as a shipping company and a ship itself. So it was interesting to hear about the data centers and the working through scenarios to try and synchronize and give a similar experience, even when there's low bandwidth. Now, how do they have to cope with change in Office 365? What sort of challenges do they face?
Well, most of the time they want to stay on top of the Office 365 changes. The solution they have is actually a document management system, SharePoint. They have a custom-made document drop-off library, and all is custom. So they started with classic theme sites, and they are still using classic theme sites. So they really have to be on top. If something's going to change to modern experience, how are they going to cope with that? And what does that mean for the solution? As far as I know, the classic theme sites will be supported a long time, but we all know it's Microsoft, and it's going to change one time. So that's where they have to be on top. And if they have to change, it's going to be a lot of work, because the project itself to create this document management system was about 2 years.
Yeah. And look, I think what we are seeing is that over time, the modern sites are beginning to get parity with the features and capabilities. So eventually, I think we hope that you'd be able to transfer that solution to the modern team site experience. Hey, thanks very much, Paul, for checking in with us and just giving us an interesting story around how mobility in the larger sense of being on a ship, and how they have to also deal with change within Office 365. We'll check in with you again another time. So how do people catch up with you? I can see we've got your Twitter handle there. It's at KBWorks.
Yeah, exactly. At KBWorks is my most used Twitter handle. You can look me up at LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever social media. I'm always on there. I just have my logo redesigned, so yeah, I'm fully into social media.
Cool. All right. So yeah, any of our people who watch the shows, who follow along and they speak prefer Dutch, then you should already be connected to listening to Paul's podcast and his webcast as well. Thanks again, Paul. We'll catch you again soon. Bye for now.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, that was Paul Kaisis, and thank you, Paul, for talking to us about the unique challenges of having Office 365 and shipping. What are you laughing at, dude?
You said there's the eyebrows. Anyway.
Well, we were just talking about this. See, so in the background, guys, there's no timer there. So when I cue off a video, I don't know when it finishes. And Dan was saying you should have a little signal to yourself to say when it's wrapping up. I thought, oh, there you go. There's some eyebrows that I give, as I'm like, hey, thanks for watching. Groucho Marx.
You start with the eyebrows, and you said there's eyebrows, and I went, what is it? Oh, that's funny.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, never mind. So Phil's comment too there about the challenge there is the low bandwidth. So when you're cruising around on ships, if you are trying to watch your budget, and I'm just talking way out of depth here. There's so many ocean puns right now, but this whole satellite costs of having satellite internet, and Paul's actually highlighting there that it's not necessarily the cost that you've budgeted for as you're going out on the ship, and that you've got a good internet connection. That's going to vary. But then when you get into a port which is not as well resourced and doesn't have as great an internet connection, do you use what's there in the infrastructure, or do you pay for your own satellite connection and have that constantly there? So it's interesting too, and he talked to me about the way of having your own little data center on the ship, and the attempts to try and synchronize the content from the cloud to the ship, so that you've got that consistent environment if you do have poor bandwidth.
I worked for an inland shipping company about almost 8 years ago, and we had the same issue. We had a machine on every vessel, and it was connected via satellite for certain communications for tracking, but for communication it was kind of spotty for getting emails and that kind of stuff. But then whenever we got a good communication, we'd sync those. We'd pass software, we'd grab stuff and do a lot of syncing. So it is think about people who are not in those constant communication. It can be tough.
Yeah, so it brings its own challenges too, with change management, and that's where the concept of the containers for Docker containers came from. So let's leave the puns off there. Thanks everyone for joining us with that video, and thanks again, Paul, for chatting. So if you are keen in talking to us about stories that you have, maybe you've got some similar interesting use cases, or you've got an opinion about a release, a recent feature, the way that people are responding to that in your organization or within your customers, we're keen to hear. In 5 or 10 minutes we'll have a chat, and we'll feature that on the show. So get in touch with us at Regarding 365, and even talk about it using hashtag #Re365. That's ours now. Hashtag #Re365.
Yes,
yeah. All right, so that was the Office 365 Message Center of the week that was. We are going to be talking to Liz next week, so looking forward to hearing your stories there, Liz, around change and choice, right in line with a few things I'm writing about at the moment. That was the Message Center of the week that was, and we'll see episode 33 next week. It is going to be a little different because I'm going to
We'll figure it out.
To Brisbane.
No, you're supposed to surprise them.
Oh, okay. Ta-da! Ta-da!
Ta-da!
Anyway, ta-ta, everyone. Bye for now.
See ya.